Good evening, I'm Jim Lara, and on the NewsHour this Friday, the lead story, a soaring new federal deficit forecast. The other news of the day, a recession report from Southern California on some high school students and their families, a book conversation about the collapse of the giant investment bank, Bear Stearns, the analysis of Mark Shields and Byron York, filling in for David Brooks, and a Margaret Warner report on the role of women in Afghanistan.
Major funding for the NewsHour with Jim Lara is provided by...
The world is changing, and how we use energy today cannot be how we use it tomorrow. There is no one solution. It's not simply more oil, more renewables, or being more efficient. It's all of it. Our way of life depends on developing all forms of energy and to use less of it. It's time to put our differences aside. Will you be part of the solution? Chevron, human energy.
Grant Thornton.
And the National Science Foundation, supporting education and research across all fields of science and engineering.
And with the ongoing support of these institutions and foundations. And
this program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
There were stark new forecasts on the federal deficit today. The Congressional Budget Office warned long-term deficits will be much worse than White House projections. That includes $1.8 trillion for this fiscal year. The report came as President Obama campaigned to build confidence in his spending plans. NewsHour correspondent Kwame Holman has our lead story report.
The president faced the new figures hours after returning to the White House from California. He tried to corral support for his economic stimulus and budget initiatives in a meeting with state legislators.
That's why we're taking unprecedented steps, not just to help your states make it through these difficult times, but to make sure that you come out stronger on the other end, more prosperous than you were before. That's the purpose of the budget that I'm submitting to Congress. It's a budget that makes hard choices about where to save and where to spend. Because of the massive deficit we inherited and the costs of this financial crisis, we are having to go through the books line by line, page by page, so that we can cut our deficit in half by the end of my first term and reduce it by $2 trillion over the next decade.
The administration says that would mean a cumulative $7 trillion in deficits over 10 years. But here at the Capitol today, the Congressional Budget Office said lawmakers actually will confront an even larger number, $9.3 trillion. In other words, deficits will equal at least 4% of the economy every year, a level many economists say is dangerous.
The budget that we are...
The White House budget chief, Peter Orszag, answered that those projections are too pessimistic. He said he's confident the Obama budget will mean smaller shortfalls. Reaction in Congress divided along party lines. Republicans blamed President Obama's policies, while Democrats looked to the Bush years.
On the one hand, President Obama says we're going to cut the deficit. On the other way, we got runaway spending like never before in history. People want, I think the economy will be helped more when they see there's responsible reined-in spending more than just throwing money after money.
Now we have institutional deficits, huge deficits. They've been record deficits for most of the last 8 years. We need to make the tough choices. We need to get the economy under control, and it's not going to be easy.
The choices may be tougher still after the AIG bonus storm this week. It's raised questions about support for the rest of the president's agenda.
Please welcome President Barack Obama.
Mr. Obama addressed the issue again last night on NBC's Tonight Show with Jay Leno.
The main thing, we're going to do everything we can to see if we can get these bonuses back. But I think the most important thing that we can do is make sure that we put in a bunch of financial, regulatory mechanisms to prevent companies like an AIG holding the rest of us hostage.
And there was more today on bonuses at mortgage lending giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, now under government control. House Financial Services Committee Chairman Barney Frank, in a letter, asked a federal oversight agency to cancel the payouts. But Fannie Mae Chief Executive Herbert Allison defended bonuses in a company email as vital to the agency's mission. And Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke, at a speech in Phoenix, Arizona, homed in on the bonus problem too.
Supervisors must pay close attention to compensation practices that can create mismatches between the rewards and the risks borne by institutions or their managers. As the Federal Reserve and the other banking agencies have noted, poorly designed compensation policies can create perverse incentives that can ultimately jeopardize the health of a banking organization.
The president may have more to say about bonuses and deficits this Sunday in his second extensive interview on CBS's 60 Minutes since becoming president. He also plans his second White House news conference next Tuesday night.
In other news today, Wall Street finished the week on a bearish note as bank stocks fell. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 122 points to close at 72.78. The NASDAQ was down 26 points to close at 1457. For the week, the Dow still gained more than 0.5%, and the NASDAQ rose nearly 2%. The U.S. Postal Service will offer early retirement buyouts to 150,000 workers. It also plans to eliminate 1,400 management positions and close 6 district offices nationwide. The agency lost $2.8 billion last year and faces even larger losses this year. President Obama made a new overture to the people of Iran in a videotaped message early this morning. It coincided with an Iranian festival that celebrates the arrival of spring and the beginning of a new year.
So in this season of new beginnings, I would like to speak clearly to Iran's leaders. We have serious differences that have grown over time. My administration is now committed to diplomacy that addresses the full range of issues before us and to pursuing constructive ties among the United States, Iran, and the international community. This process will not be advanced by threats. We seek instead engagement that is honest and grounded in mutual respect.
At the same time, the president warned Iran cannot take its rightful place in the world through terror or arms. In response, Iran said the U.S. must make fundamental changes in its policies to reverse decades of mistrust. In another development, 2 U.S. Navy vessels collided in the mouth of the Persian Gulf near Iran. It happened at night in the Strait of Hormuz, a body of water that's a key passageway for oil supplies. The incident involved the nuclear-powered submarine USS Hartford and the amphibious ship USS New Orleans, seen here in file photographs. The U.S. Navy said the submarine's nuclear reactor was not damaged and both vessels sailed on. 15 sailors were slightly injured. In Iraq, the U.S. military reported an American airstrike north of Baghdad killed 11 insurgents, and a provincial leader in Pakistan insisted Taliban leader Mullah Omar is not hiding there, but in Afghanistan. He warned against expanding U.S. missile strikes into his region. White House officials spent part of this day apologizing for a presidential quip. A spokesman said Mr. Obama made a thoughtless joke last night on The Tonight Show. He compared his poor bowling skills to competition in the Special Olympics for the mentally disabled. The president himself apologized right after the show. And still to come on the NewsHour tonight, high school kids in the economic downturn, the Bear Stearns collapse, Shields and York, and women in Afghanistan. The high school story went national when it caught the attention of President Obama. The report first aired yesterday on our public television station, KCET Los Angeles. It's from its weekly news magazine, SoCal Connected. The correspondent is John Larson.
Like many California cities, Pomona was badly wounded by the imploding real estate boom, a boom that feels now more like a roadside bomb. Record foreclosures, rising unemployment. As Pomona-born Tom Waits sings it, It's a matter of trying to hold on.
So hold on, hold on.
Well, I would say that the American dream is changing. You know, in the past, kids wanted material. And I think now it's more making sure we get through this together.
If you want to hear something new about the economic downturn and something encouraging about the American spirit, listen to this high school teacher.
Everyone has to kind of roll their sleeve up and work within their community to help one another.
Michael Steinman teaches advanced placement language arts at Village Academy High School in Pomona. Built in an abandoned department store in a shopping mall, Village Academy High is nonetheless a state-of-the-art public high school.
The American dream changed. Is it different now? Is it more about ideals or opportunities?
So you were reading The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the American dream.
Well, usually when you talk about the American dream, kids are into material possessions. They're into cars and jobs. But when I asked them about how their lives were going, they just came alive. They all had a story, whether it had to do with parents losing jobs, foreclosures. Everybody had something, and they were very impassioned in telling the story.
So the teacher asked his students to write anonymous essays about what the current economy was doing to their families. Essays which took his breath away.
And the stories I read were just absolutely riveting. I read about students who were living in little house trailers behind houses, who were eating meager amounts of food.
And then he made his students an offer.
I said, if you'd like to somehow utilize your freedom of speech and utilize the democratic process, I'll be happy to guide you and put together your thoughts in a film, and we'll try to send it off to both Senator McCain and Senator Obama, who at the time was prior to the election.
So Mr. Steinman's students went to the school's video lab and began recording their stories.
No matter what you think about it, it's always in your head and it's always in the back of your mind.
They put together a video which asked the question, is anybody listening?
I want to be a neurologist,
plastic surgeon, environmental scientist,
psychologist, guidance counselor.
We've all been affected by this economic crisis. I mean, we're all college-bound students, right? But the way things are going, we're not going to be able to make it.
My father has just lost one of his jobs, and now it's even more difficult for us to pay our house.
At the moment, I am currently the only one that can support my family and can't. My mom won't let me get a job to help her, and I'm really, really scared that I might have to put up school for another year.
You just wonder, do people even care anymore? Do people look around and see what's really going on? We're like 4 months behind rent. And just having my brothers, they might be homeless. I mean, I can get out, but my brothers they might be homeless pretty soon.
We lived in a home for 3 years, and we lost it about almost a year ago. So we moved with our aunt. There are currently 12 of us in a one-room house, so do the math.
The students had asked whether anyone was listening. They would soon be stunned by the answer.
And then it went to YouTube, and we started getting hits on YouTube, people watching it. Oh, they were crying, they were so touched by it, this is what's happening in the country. We also had a couple of stories appear in local newspapers.
The local newspaper accounts brought us to Village Academy to hear the story behind their story.
And we pay about $1,100 for the rent space because we live in a mobile home park.
Victoria Gonzalez, like all the other students in the video, can do the math. In her case, it's her family's rent.
So it's it didn't go up this month. It's going to go up in June.
Right.
And then after that, it's going to keep going up and up and up.
Victoria shares her home with her mother, brother, disabled sister, and 2 other people they've taken in to try to pay the rent. Her mother, a homemaker, is desperate to find work after her husband, Victoria's father, was laid off and returned to Mexico to try to find work. Their family could soon be evicted.
It's sad walking into your house 3 o'clock in the afternoon, coming from school, and seeing your mother just sitting there, at times wondering if she's still alive, because she's just sitting there staring at absolutely nothing. And I know what she's thinking, you know, and It's hard. It's very, very hard.
I have my brothers. They might be homeless. I mean, I can get out, but my brothers.
When Chris Schultz spoke of his family's struggles, he was not exaggerating.
How long you lived here?
I've been living here since I was third grade. So.
Chris invited us to his home. His youngest brother, David, met us at the front door.
David, hey, how's SpongeBob? You got them both?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Let me see. Very nice.
Chris's father, an accountant, has been out of work for a year.
This is my mom, Joanne.
His mother, a teacher's aide, has had her hours reduced due to school budget cuts.
How do you get by, based on the school job you got, and, how do you pay the rent?
Well, we're behind. As long my landlord's really good. As long as we maintain what we, on the first of the month, the rent now, she's willing to work with us.
Good.
Yeah, she's a blessing to our family.
But how far behind?
A couple of months.
A quick tour of their home. 2 bedrooms for the 5 of them, a kitchen, and the refrigerator.
In my refrigerator, well, we got milk, eggs, ham, and barbecue sauce.
Mostly, it's just milk, water, and oatmeal from the food bank.
And here we have burritos. That's our dinner. I mean, we're not too bad off right now. Sometimes I wish I can come home and, I wish the refrigerator was filled up, sometimes. But then I mean, it's hard for me because I look at it and I see, I want to eat so bad. I'm really hungry sometimes, but then, you think about, okay, I have to feed my brothers. I have to feed my brothers,
They are handling problems that, really adults handle, and in some situations, really nobody should ever have to handle. They haven't shirked from their responsibility. They've taken to it with courage, sometimes with tears, but they're just doing it. They have to.
And then there's Victoria. Worried about her future, she may put off her dream of going to Yale to become a doctor, because even if she got a scholarship, she would leave her family suffering.
So you're really weighing, do I go to college and pursue my dream, or do I work in a fast food restaurant or something like that?
I need some peace of mind. I need to make sure that they're okay because, education is my #1 priority, but my family is also one of my priorities. And for me to turn my back on them, go to college, pursue my dreams, and not be able to help them, I feel that isn't the gratitude I should show my parents.
How many people have thought, I gotta get a job? I have to...
The class is worried about their parents and the future.
It's been really hard on me and my family. My father walked out on us, and it's really hard because, my mom, I see her struggling. It makes me really mad because the people we trusted the most with all our money and with everything end up making things look worse for us. So I can't imagine what's going to happen for our generation.
The students had made their video, Is Anybody Listening?, right here in their high school TV studio, in the hopes that one day they might be able to send it to someone who would listen, someone who could appreciate that despite these hard times, they have dreams too. The students' video impressed the school district superintendent, who carried the video to Washington, D.C. And then, 5 months after the students made the video, which Yvonne began with this simple message.
We're all businessmen and doctors and lawyers and all this great stuff, and we have all this potential, but the way things are going, we're not going to be able to do that.
The students of Village Academy got a lesson in democracy and an answer to their question, is anybody listening?
So, today, there's something I want to say to Yvonne and her class at Village Academy. I am listening. We are listening. America's listening. And we will not rest until your parents can keep your jobs. We will not rest until your parents can keep their jobs and your families can keep their homes. And you can focus on what you should be focusing on, your own education, until you can become the businessmen and doctors and lawyers of tomorrow, until you can reach out and grasp your dreams for the future.
When I saw the actual clip, it was just surreal. It was so amazing, and you know, our message got across, and he's listening, and hopefully, you know, it does something great comes out of this.
It made me realize that people do care and people are listening.
There is no promise, of course, that the president's mention will change any of their situations. But the students of Village Academy have already started changing it themselves. They call it the Village Project. Students helping students find food banks, share used clothing, even gift cards.
If someone needs it, they can come to us and we can help them. We have an answer instead of them just having to worry every day of what are they going to do, where are they going to sleep, what are they going to eat. So it's just about students helping each other.
And their teacher believes that may be the lesson here, that together his students are telling a new American story, and that together theirs is a powerful voice.
There's an Obama postscript to John's report. The president visited the students in Pomona yesterday during his trip to Southern California, and he answered their questions and pledged his education policies would help improve their situation. Next, the house of cards that helped bring down Wall Street. This was a week dominated by the AIG story and the executives who took huge risks with tens of billions of dollars. Long before the AIG story began to play itself out, there were foreshadowings on Wall Street. Ray Suarez has our conversation.
It was just over a year ago that the revered Wall Street and global investment bank and brokerage firm Bear Stearns collapsed. That meltdown proved to be the first of a flood of bank failures and a precursor to the worst global financial crisis since the Great Depression. William Cohen is a former Wall Street investment banker turned writer and author of House of Cards, a tale of hubris and wretched excess on Wall Street, in which he follows the history and decline of Bear Stearns. And you begin the story sort of at the end of the story with how this all happened, a very thorough tick-tock of how men, mostly men, raced to stop this collapse from happening and then at some point had to let it happen.
Well, you know, one of the challenges of writing a book where people think they know the ending, and everybody, of course, does. I mean, the ending doesn't change. But, you know, my goal was to try to explain to people how and why this happened. Not only what happened those last 10 days, but take the readers back so they could understand how Bear Stearns found itself in a position where something like this could happen.
Remind us how that was.
Well, there was a number of factors, but first of all, the first key thing was the incentive system on Wall Street. Human beings are relatively simple. You just reward them for something and they will do it. And on Wall Street, the reward system was just do as much as you possibly can, generate as much revenue as you can, as quickly as you can. And when the firms on Wall Street in the late 60s, early 70s went from being private partnerships to public companies, in private partnerships they shared the profits and they shared the liabilities. So if somebody did something wrong, then they all shared ratably in that mistake. Well, when they transformed themselves into public companies, all the benefits went to the people on Wall Street who worked there, and all the liabilities went to the shareholders. And as a result, people on Wall Street began taking bigger and bigger risks with their shareholders' money, knowing full well if the bet paid off, they would get a nice bonus early on, and nobody would take it from them. And if the bet didn't pay off, well, that problem would rest with their shareholders. Now, how do I know this? Because I worked on Wall Street for 17 years, and I am myself a beneficiary of that financial incentive system. And while I was just an M&A banker and didn't take any risks with the firm's capital, all around you could see what people were motivated to do. And it just became unhealthy and resulted in any number of crises that we've lived through for the past generation, whether it was the crash of '87, internet IPO bubble, emerging telecom debt bubble, and now mortgage-backed securities.
Well, you mentioned that you knew this world from the inside as a mergers and acquisitions guy. But were there points when you were telling this story where even you couldn't believe what people had done and were doing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the fact that Bear Stearns would allow itself to be so concentrated in mortgage-backed securities and other risky securities that it manufactured and sold to the marketplace. And over time, as the selling of these securities slowed down and the buyers weren't there, the inventory on their balance sheet of these securities continued to rise until they were stuffed to the gills with these securities. The other thing, the real revelation for me, was how Wall Street financed itself. Rank-and-file people on Wall Street don't understand how Wall Street finances itself. They understand how their clients finance themselves. You know, you get a 10-year loan, and you pay interest, and you pay the principal back over time. On Wall Street, the reason this whole thing was so precarious is because on Wall Street, firms like Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers financed themselves in what was called the overnight financing market. They got short-term loans that were inexpensive, and the collateral for those loans was the inventory of these mortgage-backed securities that they had built up on their balance sheet. So as those securities lost value during the first quarter of 2008, it really began in the spring of 2007, but all through that year, these securities lost value, and nobody wanted to buy them, and nobody wanted to sell them. And these were used as the collateral for these overnight loans. Bear Stearns would get $75 billion of overnight loans from people like Federated Investors and Fidelity Investments to finance their business. Well, at that last week in March, Fidelity and Federated said, we don't want to take that collateral. We don't want it.
That was the striking part, that even when the people at the top of the pyramid at Bear Stearns were taking these huge risks, they were very heavily tied into a bunch of other companies that had a very strong interest in not letting them go down. Yes, Bear Stearns was at the edge of the cliff, but they had a rope tied to their ankle and everybody else's ankle.
Yes. As Wall Street became much bigger, much more capital involved, much more global, the relationships became much like a spider web. And that's why in this fateful day in March a year ago, the Fed, the Treasury, and the New York Fed decided that, you know, Bear Stearns was, quote, too big to fail, and they didn't want to risk an out-and-out liquidation of Bear Stearns and the effect that that would have on all their, quote-unquote, counterparties, all the customers they did business with. Now, we all know that they changed their view on that when it came to Lehman Brothers, although the circumstances were different, and then they changed it again when it came to AIG. So, you know, they were testing all sorts of theses as they went along. Unfortunately, we were the losers in all of this.
It is stunning that the people at the top had to call away one of the primary personalities who built Bear Stearns over the last generation away from the card tables to talk about this. And even then, he sort of bugged out of one conference call and went back to his bridge game.
Well, you know, the book is called House of Cards because it's a, you know, double entendre on the fact that the three of the top 5 executives at Bear Stearns, Jimmy Kane, who was the CEO from 1993 till January of 2008, Ace Greenberg, who was the CEO from 1978 to 1993 when Jimmy Kane, you know, deposed him, and Warren Spector, who was the co-president for much of the last decade and had built the fixed income business at the firm. All three of them were world-class bridge players. Jimmy Kane was a national bridge champion, and in fact, he got hired at Bear Stearns by Ace Greenberg because Ace was aware of Jimmy Kane's bridge prowess. At the time Jimmy interviewed with Ace, he had been a bond salesman at a small municipal bond house in New York called Liebenthal and Company, but his real passion was for playing bridge, and he played professionally for a time, and then he played, you know, as his avocation, and he played with all these wealthy Wall Streeters like Larry Tisch, who helped Jimmy Kane succeed at Bear Stearns. And when they had that interview, Ace Greenberg said, I know you, you're a great bridge player, I want to become a better bridge player too, come to Bear Stearns. And that's what happened. Jimmy Kane taught Ace Greenberg to be a better bridge player.
What should the common reader, who's not a business specialist but wants to know what happened to the world over the past year, take away from this story, and what's cautionary about the story?
Well, I like to say that this is sort of the Rosetta Stone of the crisis. If you want to understand what happened in this financial crisis, if you understand what happened at Bear Stearns, you can understand it. Part of it is that relying on that overnight financing market that I talked about before. Part of it is building this manufacturing plant for these mortgage-backed securities. And the two of them were sort of like this yin-yang relationship, and both took each other down because the collateral, these mortgage-backed securities, were used for the collateral for the overnight financing market, And when the overnight financiers didn't like that collateral anymore, they pulled the plug. The other very, very important thing is just how personalities drive what happens here. I mean, the story of Jimmy Kane and his interrelationships with Ace Greenberg and Warren Spector and Alan Schwartz, who became the CEO after Jimmy retired in January of 2008, were integral to what happened here. So when some of these people say, you know, it was a tsunami that hit them and they don't know what to do and they wouldn't have known what to do differently, you know, when they go up in front of Congress and testify about what happened here, the truth is they made decisions year after year, multitudes of decisions, like not to expand into in Europe, not to buy an asset management company, not to get bigger in investment banking, but to concentrate in the fixed income division because they were making so much money and the top executives were getting paid such huge compensation that they just didn't think about the consequences of what they were doing. Or if they did think about it, they knew they didn't want to change it because it was too good.
The book is House of Cards. William Cohen, thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
And to the analysis of Shields and York. Syndicated columnists Mark Shields and Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. David Brooks is away tonight. Mark, you take those two stories, those two segments we just had back to back, the House of Cards, what at the very top, Bear Stearns and those kids in Pomona. What have you got?
Well, what you've got, Jim, in the Pomona piece in particular, and William Cohen's book and explanation and insights, I think, are incredibly valuable. But what you got in Pomona is a reminder that unemployment rates don't bleed. You know, statistics don't cry. This put a human face on what was done by these House of Cards people and the consequences that people in their lives, and it's affecting families, it's affecting children. It's just the ripple effect is just enormous, and I just wish every one of them who played a major role in this, in the public or private, I mean, who didn't regulate where they should have, who are doing things they shouldn't have done, and put the economy and the financial system of this country at risk, would sit down, as the president did yesterday, with those children.
Yeah. Byron, do you have the feeling that that message that we heard from those kids is finally being heard by all these people who were, and I'm not talking about, you know, necessarily just the people in Wall Street, but a lot of others on a lot of other streets are now finally getting the message here?
Well, it is because people are worried about their own futures. I think polling showed not over the last several months, when the financial crisis first began, people were, of course, worried about their 401ks and their savings. And at some point in January, when unemployment figures began to go up and up and up, they're predominantly worried about losing their own jobs, losing their job. The story of losing a house, having to move in with a relative, take in some renters to try to make the rent, is a terrible possibility for people. And I think that everything we've seen shows that people who have jobs today are worried about losing them tomorrow.
And just like we reported in the news summary, you know, just as you say, a figure, a piece of information, a news story, that over 115,000 postal workers, jobs are going to go.
That's right.
I mean, and those are also people like the people from Pomona, et cetera, that all of us need to keep in mind. This was the week of AIG too. What happened as a result of this week of AIG? Where are we because of all of this?
It has not been a good week, I think, for anybody involved. We find dollars in bonuses to AIG employees who may or may not be the ones who are responsible for the riskiest work that nearly brought the company down, that would have gone down had the federal government not intervened. The Treasury Department and Congress start putting out conflicting stories. What did we know? When did we know it? Kind of pointing the fingers and covering their own backsides. And then you have a situation in which Congress, the House of Representatives, really, I think, acts like kind of a panicked herd, and there's a stampede, and they pass this bill with very little thought to impose a 90% tax on these AIG employees who make more than $250,000 are getting bonuses. And you know, in my opinion, this is the the reason the founding fathers created a Senate to put the brakes on this thing and think about it for a little bit. But it's a week in which nobody has looked good.
You agree? There's nobody shining on this one.
No, I don't completely agree by any means. I'd say, first of all, the reaction to the AIG bonuses was widespread, it was intense, and it was spontaneous. And it was almost continental. I mean, I traveled this week, and everywhere I went, I don't care if it was a waitress or a cab driver or just somebody you ran into, the anger, the fury just bubbled up. It was there. It was palpable. And, Jim, it's because it violates the fundamental value of fairness in this country. The rule is that if you work hard and you're a successful enterprise, then you benefit. You reap those benefits. This is sort of a fail-safe, risk-free capitalism. You lose, you screw up, and you get a bonus. I mean, by this standard, the Washington Nationals, which lost a team that lost more games than any team in baseball last year, would be in the World Series. I mean, they'd be rewarded for this. I mean, this is really just outrageous, and it offends people. And I think the anger was understandable. I think the administration didn't gauge it. They gave this sort of calibrated answer last on the Sunday talk shows about these are contracts. And they'd forgotten a month ago, Jim, where they had contracts with General Motors and Chrysler had with their workers. But those were abrogated. If you wanted to get federal aid, those workers had to surrender wages and benefits, blue-collar workers. But my goodness gracious, these lords of the universe on Wall Street, we'd better be tender with them.
Well, let's take this one. But generally speaking, how did the administration handle this week of AIG, particularly the president?
Well, Mark is absolutely right about the anger out there, but this was a decision that the administration and Congress made. It wasn't an accident that this clause ended up. No, of course not. This clause ended up in the stimulus bill, which was passed, and it specifically protected these bonuses. And
ones that were already under contract.
Ones that were already under contract.
Federal rescue funds.
And they set a date. I think it was February 11th. If the contracts existed before then, they would be protected. This is something that the Treasury Department asked the Senate to put into this bill, and they did it for policy reasons. Now, it may be a good reason, it may be a bad reason, but once it came out and turned into this big hot cause, they began to run from it. So I think all sense of logic here was lost.
The question, do you agree with that if that a panic, this was a panic based not really on the facts. I mean, the facts were well known. It's just that it got known by the public. In a way that went bad. But everybody who else was involved already knew about it.
Well, I don't think they all knew about it. I think a few people did. I mean, Elijah Cummings, the congressman from Maryland, warned about it last November. Yeah. He said that the bonus these fellas have is they still have a job. That we shouldn't be paying them. When the initial bailout of AIG was done, President Bush and Secretary Paulson insisted that there be no limits at all on any compensation. That was an absolute. That was a killer amendment. If there was any change in compensation had to be left to the private sector. And Byron's absolutely right. It was preserved on the 11th of February. Do I think it was uniformly known? No. But I think once people became aware of it, people understood that how wrong this was and how violative of what I think values that people do live and believe in.
What do you think, Byron, about the congressional reaction? And well, the House so far has passed this 90% taxation thing. The Senate has not yet acted. Is that a responsible act by the Congress in the United States?
I think it's a scary act by the Congress.
Scary?
Yes, I do, because it's dangerously close to a bill of attainder, which is specifically prohibited in the Constitution, which is Congress cannot pass a law directed toward a single person or a small group of people, punishing them without any sort of due process. The House has widened this to include other companies, and perhaps it can pass the bill of attainder test, but it certainly kind of smells like one. And it's after these deals were made. Now, these bonuses are a bad idea, and you have these companies. You know, Merrill Lynch paid out, what was it, $2.5 billion in bonuses, not $165 million, $2.5 billion, which they speeded up to December so they could make sure they got the money out the door
before the Bank of America thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are a terrible idea, but I'm not sure that this is the right way for a calm legislature to go about this.
Democracy is messy. It really is. And if I'd been in the Congress, I would have voted for it. I mean,
you would have
I would have voted for it. I mean, I'll be very blunt. I mean, it was rather remarkable to see 85 Republicans for whom voting for any tax increase.
They split down the middle.
They split right down the middle.
The Republicans.
House Republicans, 87 to 85. I mean, to see Eric Cantor of Virginia, the Republican House Whip, I mean, more conservative. For a 90%, 95%, that was a sight to behold. But I can understand that anger, and there has to be.
But anger is one thing. Byron is saying, wait a minute, maybe that's not the way to legislate. That's your point, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait, maybe it isn't. I mean, it is responding to a sense of public outrage, and I think quite bluntly, Jim, it's totally legitimate. To give voice to that, and to let these people know that shameless greed has its limits.
Now, is another impact of this going to be it'll be a cold day and fill in the blank before there's another stimulus package or another rescue package of any kind because of the AIG heat?
Well, Republicans, Mark is right about them opposing limits on executive compensation.
Yep.
Once that happened, though, Republicans have serious I told you so points right now because every single one of them in the House, all but 3 of them in the Senate, voted against this stimulus bill. John Boehner has made a web video of himself looking at a video of himself from that day in the floor of the House when he's holding up this enormous stimulus bill, and he says it's 1,100 pages and not a single member has read it, and whatever happened to this idea that we should read stuff before we send it out, and he drops it to the floor with a thud. Democrats pushed that bill through very, very fast before anybody had a chance to read what was in it, and they're saying in the future we can't do that again.
So you don't think you do think there's going to be an impact here, more than just anger and a few.
More skepticism of I mean, there's sort of a bailout fatigue, I think, in the public anyway. More cynicism about that, less faith in the Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner. Yeah, these will have effects.
Here's the dilemma, and I know Byron is not seriously suggesting that any member of Congress reads every page of a 600-page bill.
I'm sure he didn't.
No, I mean, he never did, and I know John Boehner didn't, because I know John Boehner, and I like John Boehner, but John Boehner does not spend his time reading 1,100-page bills.
This was a particularly rush job.
This was a rush job. I understand that, but I think the reality for the administration is nothing works until this credit thing is resolved, until you can figure out how this bank and getting rid of these toxic assets, these bad mortgages. And to do that, it's probably going to take another $750 billion. And I think AIG has poisoned the well.
And not going to get that, you think?
I think politically and in the country and in the Congress, there is not the will at this point, Jim, to say, okay, let's pony up another $750 billion, absent guarantees and the president going, well, the president passed the stimulus package, which did include a lot of good benefits for most districts, with 3 Republicans in the Senate voting for it and no Republicans in the House. This is a lot tougher vote, and I think it's going to be a lot tougher sell.
Well, I think that it absolutely will be. There's no doubt about it. And also you have the problem is, Mark is right, the single most important thing the government should do right now is come up with a financial rescue plan, deals with the toxic assets that still threaten the entire economy. The president so far has not done that. Treasury Secretary Geithner has not come out with one. He came out and kind of announced a plan to have a plan. The Treasury is not staffed at the moment, and the president has gone out and pushed healthcare, energy, and the environment, arguing that those are essential for a true, long-lasting recovery. Meanwhile, this big, stinking problem is still there.
Nothing has been resolved. That's what both of you are saying, until there's some sign that things are changing, things are getting better. Any more bailout rescue things are going to have a problem, AIG aside.
I think AIG makes it tougher, Jim.
Makes it tougher
sell.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both very much. And finally tonight, Margaret Warner wraps up nearly a month of reporting in Afghanistan with this story on the fate and future of Afghan women.
On a misty morning in southwest Kabul, girls are playing catch-up. At this Afghans for Tomorrow Foundation school, 15-year-olds are in first grade with 6-year-olds. It's a legacy of the Taliban era, when girls' education was forbidden through virtually all of Afghanistan.
These girls are now learning, and that should help all Afghanistan. Since most of the problems here, the reason is uneducation.
In a country where the literacy rate for girls is just 11%, this marks an improvement, says Seema Samar of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission.
Of course, not everywhere in every corner, but 35% of the students, of the children who goes to school is girl. Although we are not happy with the number, still it's a lower number, but it is something, a positive change.
But there's still resistance to that change from the Taliban and the culture. The deteriorating security kept more than 600 public schools from reopening this year. And more than half of all Afghan girls get married before age 16. Afghanistan remains a male-dominated society. On a recent religious holiday, men at a local mosque spent the day preparing and serving meals to the poor. There wasn't a woman in sight. Some women do walk on Kabul's teeming streets, but in the rural areas where 3/4 of Afghans live, women rarely venture out in public. And those that do are swathed in pale blue head-to-toe burqas that seem to float down the streets. Behind these scenes, women say, many of them lead lives that are crushingly repressive and painful. Hidden away down a rabbit warren of twisting dirt paths in Kabul, in a small mud brick building, these women have come together for support. Many have been mistreated by their husbands or in-laws, but at this program, run by a private group, Women for Women International, they're learning crafts and skills to give them some economic independence and control. Homa Najibi, 27, is the mother of 6. Her mother-in-law abused her, once pouring boiling water on her hands while Homa's husband stood by. Now, after 6 months of training, she's earning money and respect at home.
I see my future better because they have trained me to be a more professional tailor, and I can make money out of it. I can also train some of my daughters, and we can start a small business.
But others who have fled forced marriages are still in distress. When 27-year-old Zora Alokazai was 16, her father sold her into marriage to a man from rural Ghazni province. The price? $140. It was a life of forced farm labor, and after multiple children, she fled back to Kabul. Her husband followed her and made her pregnant again, then left.
When I had my baby at 2 days old, they took that baby to my husband by force.
She feels powerless to act. Her husband is in his Taliban-controlled village beyond the reach of the government or its courts. Losing this latest child is all the more painful because of what happened before.
I had to give birth inside the house, and I lost 3 of my children because they would not take me to the hospital.
These provincial women, after delivering premature babies at home, were fortunate to be brought to this special hospital for sick children in Kabul to try to save them. But the odds for women are getting worse in the countryside as the Taliban extends its reach, says Roshana Wardak, an obstetrician and member of parliament.
Those parts which are under control of Taliban, women are very much miserable. Their situation is very much miserable. I would like to say this. Our government never pay attention to those ladies.
And it's not just Taliban influence that confines Afghan women.
We have our own special culture. And also culture has limited activity of the woman. For example, a woman cannot, she is not safe when she is alone. She needs a man. And also, she doesn't have enough income. She is dependent to the man.
Women are beginning to reach out to one another for help. On a call-in show called Banu on Tolo TV, Farzana Samini fields calls from anonymous women seeking advice on everything from their husband's infidelity to their in-laws.
In Afghanistan, a lot of social problems women cannot share with their very close friends. Because from the beginning, the women, especially in Afghanistan, they have been told not to talk about their problems with others. They don't feel confident when they talk with someone, so they hide it.
At first, reaction to the program was negative. Some women lambasted her for bringing these taboo subjects to light. Samimi says working women like herself are fearful of attack.
Especially women working for the media, when we are coming to our jobs, there is a little bit of fear, but we still have to just act as brave women.
The best way is education of both sexes.
Roshanak Wardak believes change will come for Afghan women only when more Afghan men become enlightened.
If a woman is very much highly educated, but a man is not educated, it's impossible to recognize her rights, what rights she has. But if a man is educated, man will give her rights by himself.
These three young students at the American University of Afghanistan aren't waiting around. 18-year-old Angela wants to be a businesswoman. 19-year-old Shakiba wants to be a judge. And 17-year-old Shagufa plans to go into politics big time.
I'm going to be the president of Afghanistan in future.
They dress like hip teenage girls throughout the Muslim world. Covered hair atop trendy clothes. But those are the Kabul rules.
When I go back, I cannot dress like this. Yeah, I have to wear a long skirt, like a big scarf.
So when you go home and you want to go out, you wear a burqa.
I have to do that. When I am in a society that they all wear burqa, I have to do that.
Shagufa is more daring. She dresses identically at home.
I want to change the idea of people. I want to get uplift for women that they also can be like me.
Do you want to get married?
I'm really afraid of this because I'm thinking that if I get married with someone, then my life will be changed.
At first, I don't want to get married for a long time, and before that I get married, I want to choose the educated person.
Brave words from a rooftop in a land of conservative cultural mores, where even in some quarters of the sprawling city of Kabul, the Taliban's more extreme vision still persists.
And again, the major developments of this day. The Congressional Budget Office warned the Obama budget will generate annual deficits of nearly $1 trillion over the next 10 years. Wall Street tumbled, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost more than 120 points, and President Obama made a new overture to the people of Iran in a videotaped message, but the Iranian government said U.S. policies must change before relations can improve. And a reminder, you can find us online at our new one-stop address, newshour.pbs.org. Tonight, there's a link to KCET's SoCal Connected website to learn more about those Village Academy High School kids we saw reported on a while ago. You can also ask questions of author William Cohan in an online forum about his book and the Bear Stearns collapse. And you can watch a report on the art beat on the Arab comic book sensation The 99. And on our new global health site, there's a preview of Ray Suarez's reports next week on the AIDS epidemic in South Africa. Remember, the NewsHour is always available whenever you want it at newshour.pbs.org. Also remember, Washington Week can be seen later this evening on most PBS stations, and then we'll see you online and again here Monday evening. Have a nice weekend. I'm Jim Lara. Thank you and good night.
Major funding for the NewsHour with Jim Lehrer is provided by
oil, energy, the environment. Where are the answers? This isn't a liberal or conservative issue. It's a human issue. As an energy company, Chevron has a great responsibility. So we've improved our own energy efficiency 27% since 1992. And now we ask you to join us in one of the most important efforts of our time. Using less. Will you join us? Chevron, human energy.
Grant Thornton.
The William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, working to solve social and environmental problems at home and around the world.
And with the ongoing support of these institutions and foundations. And
this program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
I am PBS.
KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, GE, Frigidaire, and more. Take 10 to 15% off select side-by-side French door and bottom freezer refrigerators. Get 20% off select Simmons Beauty Rest sets, 10% off select high-efficiency laundry, and 10% off select dishwashers. The price blast ends Saturday at Standard TV and Appliance.
Your attention, please. Over 240 lender foreclosed homes throughout the Northwest must be sold, including 80 homes in Oregon. It's a one-day public auction event April 4th. Open house dates are March 21st, 28th, and 29th. View the homes auction dates and all information at ushomeauction.com. Foreclosed homes auction prices, easy financing. If you're not buying real estate in today's market, the time to start is now, especially with mortgage rates at their lowest in history. For your free auction brochure, pre-registration, and all auction details, visit ushomeauction.com. That's www.ushomeauction.com.
At Dodge, we're working to earn your trust in your business by delivering the best quality and reliability in our history. Announcing Employee Pricing Plus Plus on nearly all our vehicles. You get our employee price plus a $1,000 cash allowance and a no extra charge Hemi upgrade, which all adds up to almost $7,000 in savings on a new Dodge Ram 1500 quad cab. Plus, well-qualified buyers get 0% financing. Hurry in. Employee Pricing Plus Plus ends March 31st. See your Dodge dealer today.
The Rat Pack, part of the Fred Meyer Broadway Across America Portland